Thank you guys for joining us for another great program. This program, we're going to go ahead and have Joanne give her presentation. And then what we're going to do is I have a few questions. She has done a lot of different fireside chats. So there's just some questions, and then I would like to open it up to, of course, our members, and leave enough time for us to go ahead and ask questions. So without further ado, I want to again introduce Joanne Lockwood, and we had a Berta. Your bulletin was getting all kinds of rave reviews as you were waiting in the waiting room by Charta, but
Oh,
wanted to thank you and the great description of the bio for our program. I was actually able to share the bulletin ahead of time with our speaker, so she has it, and it
oh,
was it
good.
was fabulous. And Charter wants you to keep the same format because she's able to read it without her glasses. So if you could make sure whatever you did to continue to do so, that would be amazing. Um,
Okay.
but so as I said before, Joanne Lockwood is the founder and CEO of See Change Happen. She's a fearless, inclusive culture expert, international keynote speaker, and champion for diversity and inclusion. Her journey to redefine societal norms and reshape the world's understanding of inclusion is nothing short of inspiring. Collaborating with people, HR talent acquisition, and learning and development leaders, Joanne's authentic approach to addressing exclusion and bias transcends traditional equity, diversion, and inclusion. Her bespoke equity, diversion, and inclusion support programs breathe life into conscious inclusion, weaving it into the fabric of organizations, fostering positive people experiences and environments where everyone thrives. Joanne's personal journey as a transgender woman fuels her passion for transgender awareness and support, guiding organizations and developing allies programs and LGBTQ plus awareness and support, guiding organizations in developing uh, inclusion strategies. She is not just a consultant, but a heartfelt mentor inspiring change. She It's very impressive. She's the fellow and chair of the board of the Professional Speaking Association in the UK and Ireland. She is a sought after keynote conference speaker. She's a member of the Institute of Equality and Diversity Professionals. She's a regular blogger and columnist, sharing her insights and experiences. She has been featured in a UK channel, uh, The Making of Me. She's the host of Inclusion Bites podcast. She is a trustee and member of the People and Culture Committee for the LGBTQ plus youth homeless charity. Joanne's soulful impact on the world of diversity and inclusion has earned her numerous accolades, a testament to her relentless dedication. A key takeaway from Joanne's story is the undeniable power of empathy, understanding, and inclusivity in transforming lives and organizations. By connecting with Joanne, you gain a partner in fostering an environment where everyone can thrive, unlocking the full potential of your organization. Expect to be inspired, challenged, and guided towards a more inclusive and empowering culture. So, without further ado, I just really I'm going to turn it over to Joanne because I want to give her as much time as we can allow. And I just want you guys to know that she has been most gracious in meeting with me ahead of this, saying yes without hesitation. She spoke at the UK for the UK's E Club, the Rotary Club of Innovation, and that's how I found her using Google. And she is a fellow, was a fellow. Well, she still is a fellow Rotarian. I mean, she's no longer in Rotary, but I'll let her share that story. But Joanne, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, I was going to say good morning. It is good morning for me. It's 007 here in the UK. And thank you for that warm welcome. Those words were amazing. I could have written those myself. Oh, I probably did. Thank you very much, Jason, for that intro anyway. Um, just checking you can see the slides over my shoulder. Yeah, all good. Oh, and I've got a hand raised automatically. We can turn that off. So I knew from a very early age that I was different from my brothers. I was different from my classmates. And as I got older and older and older, I realized that difference became more marked and it caused me inconvenience, whether that was at school, people correcting my behavior, in sport, or other activities that I performed. And my parents knew that I was different as well. So as I grew older and older and older, I realized I was born into a world that wasn't designed by people like me for people like me. In fact, if you look back in time and history, people like me have been demonized for many, many generations. Even today, in many parts of the world, people like me are treated in a different way, with less respect. In fact, there are whole words in the English dictionary and other dictionaries that are based on people like me. You see, I'm left-handed, and people like me have been rejected through time and immemorial. In the Dark Ages, people like myself, left-handers, were accused of witchcraft and other sinister acts. And in fact, the word sinister comes from left-handedness. And we still see in parts of the world now where people still have hands bound behind their back, hit with rulers, tortured almost to try and use their right hand. So being left-handed, even though it's 10% of the population, is still seen as not the norm. And I've had to adapt into a world designed by right-handed people all of my life. I'm also a Capricorn. And I don't know about you if you're a horoscope fan, but I always find when I read the horoscope that being a Capricorn is the best star sign out. I look at all the others, Taurus or Gemini, whatever it is. I think, no, absolutely proud to be a Capricorn, and the horoscope is always the best. And I'm also a Saturday child. And I don't know if you have the rhyme in the US, but a Saturday child, I don't know what a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday child is, but a Saturday child works hard for a living in this children's rhyme. So I've always been a left-handed Capricorn Saturday child. And those are three parts of my identity that I've held with me all of my life. And they're also parts of my identity you probably wouldn't appreciate unless I just told you, or you know me really well. And I'm sure we all have our own things that we're proud of that are part of our core. You may well be right-handed, you may well be a Taurus, you may well be born on a Wednesday, and you may well be proud of that as well. In which case, that's fine. So, what we have to do is remember that what we see for people is not always what is important to them, but that outer presentation, that outer bit. And we're creating our biases based on what we see and what we believe. So, let me just move that into the middle of the screen so I look like I'm looking at you rather than over there. So, Jason mentioned conscious inclusion during that intro. And let me give you an example of what conscious inclusion can look like or not look like. So I don't know if you have these in where you are. Oh, I'm disappearing there. This is a soup flask or a food flask where you can, in there, you can take the lid off. And I bought one of these because I travel around a lot and I want to sit in my car in a lay-by and have some nice vegetable soup or chicken soup or something while I was traveling around. And the good thing about it is in the lid, there's a spoon. And this spoon is really, really quite handy. So when you're sat there, you can tuck in and you haven't got to take anything else with you. I know for a fact that this product was designed by a right-handed person. Yeah. It was designed by a right-handed person. It was tested by a right-handed person. Product design, we're all right-handed. Marketing, we're right-handed. Everybody involved with the evolution of this product were right-handed. How do I know that? Because if you hold the spoon in your left hand and try and use it, it folds up. If you hold the spoon in your right hand and use it, it locks. So the first time I went to use this in my lay-by, sat there, ready to eat it. The spoon kept folding up, and I had to sort of try and scoop it out using this spoon. So when we think about conscious inclusion, it's about how do we design our processes? Do we design our systems? Do we design our products, whatever it may be, with inclusion in mind? And it may well be that you've designed a process that just doesn't work for 10% of the population, and that is left-handed people. Or you may not have designed it for people who are hard of hearing, deaf, sight, vision impaired, or have a disability, whatever that may be. And we've already learned that having your bulletin in large font enables people to read text without their glasses on. So that's a consciously inclusive design element to ensure that it's accessible for all. So conscious inclusion should be part of your core design. So as a club, as individuals, who aren't you thinking of? Who isn't going to be serviced and supported and able to access what you're providing in the same way as others? And I think it's really, really important. That's one of the core tenets, if you like, of what I would call positive people experiences. We want people to have a positive experience of me, of us, of we in our interactions. And the old adage is if you start with the end in mind, then you'll achieve that goal. The goal has to be, as a result of our interaction today, is it going to be a positive experience for both of us? And if we both work towards that goal, then that's all we're trying to do. Okay, let's flick on to what am I going to talk about today? So I've entitled this quick, brief session I've called it Holding the Rope, and how you as Rotarians can be catalysts for inclusion and equality or equity. And a lot of it comes down to this conscious inclusion. Am I consciously inclusive? So if I'm not consciously inclusive, it is highly likely that I'll be unconsciously excluding somebody. Okay. If I'm not consciously inclusive, I'm likely to be unconsciously excluding. So why do we need to hold the rope? Why do we need to hold the rope? We're living in a world in a strange time right now. What we thought were the norms, what we thought were progressions in inclusion, in diversity, in being a more welcoming society, seem to be eroded, not just in the US, not just in the UK, across Europe and other parts of the world. We're seeing a rollback of what was seen to be normal protections, normal standards for many people. And in fact, people are actually being demonized now just for being who they are. So as a person who's a minority myself, I've got my rope here, as you can see. The problem we have is that this rope is being pulled through our hands. We cannot hold it enough as a marginalized or minority person. This rope is being dragged through our hands all of the time, and we're getting blisters by trying to hold on. And what we need are allies. We need people who can come and join us on this rope and hold it with us. It's not about pulling people over. It's not about yanking it out of anyone else's hand. It's about holding on, because we do not have the strength to hold this on our own. We're getting these blisters. So my call to you, my rally cry to you really is think about how you can get on the end of this rope with me and hold it and hold it and hold it, because we've got plenty of rope. We just need the people to hold it and not let go. Because as soon as you let go, it will start pulling backwards. So that's my challenge to you, is about holding the rope. So I've talked a bit about my background and story. So as Jason introduced, I am a transgender woman or transsexual woman, depending on the language you prefer to use, a queer woman. I'm married. I have a couple of children. I've been married for 38 years this year. 38 years. Wow. How did I do that? And people actually say to me sometimes is, how do you stay married for that long? And I'm sure I'm speaking to people in the room here today who've probably been married longer than that. So I'm not that impressive. But I always think that the secret of a happy marriage is not having to be right. I always believe you can't be happy and right all of the time. You can be happy, but you don't always have to be right. And whether that's whoever you are in your relationship, coming together, communicating, talking, and not having to win, not having to lose is really crucial to building a positive experience between you. I think sometimes in society, we want to be right. If you look at the rhetoric, you look at what's going on in the media, what's going on in the governments and around the world, people want to be right. I think what we have to learn is we have to learn that our perspective, our opinion is just our perspective or our opinion. And we don't have to acknowledge that somebody else may have a different view. And I'm a great believer that what we should do is rather than discuss outcomes, so what you believe, start talking about why you believe something. Because if I can understand why you believe something, then I can have empathy, I can have compassion. And I don't have to agree with you. What I'll actually do is start to build that relationship where I can question you. You can ask me why I believe something. You can tell me why you believe something. Because a classic example is we don't all vote for the same people, do we? We go into the polling booth, we tick different boxes. And it doesn't mean to say I'm right and you're wrong. We just have a different view of who the best candidate is, and then we can celebrate when our candidate wins or not. So yeah, it's really important. We have to start thinking about these positive experiences and start to think about how we can coexist and live in a world where we don't have to be right. We've recognized other people. So I started this, I gender transitioned back in 2017. So coming up for eight and a bit years ago. I'd lived a pretty colourful life. As I say, I had two children, still married. And one thing I realized during that process, journey, it sounds really crass, and calling my transition a process. Um, through that evolution, if you like, was not only did I not have to be right, but I also realized that in order to be loved, you have to be, in order to be lovable, you have to be, let's start that again. In order to be loved, you have to be lovable. In order to be liked, you have to be likable. In order to be respected, you have to be worthy of that respect. And what I realized very early on was that power was in me. I can choose how I show up. I can choose how I engage with the world, engage with other people. And if I want people to love and respect me and like me, that's within my power. So I always think these things start with yourself. We talk about self-leadership, self-development, self-awareness, all these attributes. We start by being self-appreciative about who we are, how we show up. You can build more positive experiences with others. Again, starting with that end in mind. So I've spent the last 8 or 9 years building this business to promote these type of messages, to start talking to people about creating inclusive cultures, whether that's in recruitment, whether that's in organizations, in businesses, in club societies, by talking about conscious inclusion, and more recently about holding the rope, because I am getting the blisters on my hands all the time. So as Rotarians, you are ideally placed. You are global. You have been around as an organization for, was it 1918? Um, that's a very long time, and you've evolved into all parts of the world. You've created change, virtually eradicated polio in many parts of the world. You've done a lot of good and raised a lot of money and been instrumental in many, many cultures and societies around the world. Right now, the power of Rotary is to be there to support marginalized communities, to get out there, to tackle inequity and injustices wherever they are, but also bring social change and support people within those communities. So I think there's a lot that Rotary can do today. It's still relevant. I know that sometimes in some organizations in some countries, the membership is declining. The world has changed, but you're adapting, you're reinvigorating, if you like, in the world, and you still have a valuable part to play. So you do inspire. You are leaders. You are pillars of communities. You are there, out there in society. You're standing on street corners. You're raising money. You're getting involved in projects. You're creating environments where people can see your power. So you are respected. So your voice carries weight. You're just, and I often say that if you're a single snowflake, you fall to the ground and you melt. If you're a billion snowflakes, you're an avalanche, and you can change landscapes and change terrains beneath you. So if we can create movements of people, we can change landscapes for the good, not for the bad. And I think too often we see many people out there trying to change things for the worse. And I think we should come together to change things for the better, with compassion, with humanity. And unfortunately, being neutral is not an option anymore. We have to stand for something. And I know that we don't want to talk about politics, we don't want to talk about religion and division like this, but we have to recognize that we have to say something. If it's not acceptable to us, we should not let it pass. Because if we let something pass, what we're saying is it's okay on my watch. If it's not okay on our watch, we need to get in there and hold that rope, because it will slide and then we'll be next. So the call to action, my call to action to you, whatever cause you have, is to get on the end of that rope, is to amplify voices, is to call out injustice. Don't stand on the sidelines. Be bold. And I know it takes bravery sometimes to put your head out there, to lift up and be seen. Being courage, having courage, being courageous, being bold is really crucial. So the takeaway I want to leave you with, I've got one more slide after this, is that you do have a vital role for change. You have a platform, a global platform. You are entwined in all echelons of society and business. So you have the power of change, and your voice needs to be heard. Stand up and be counted. And when I was reading the magazine, it reminded me of the four-way test, because obviously I know that Rotary, these are the mantras you live by. And I was trying to look at these through my own lens of inclusion, diversity. Is it the truth? Well, if we're not telling the truth, then why? Yeah, we go back to this positive people experiences. What are we trying to do? We're trying to create environments where people believe trust. Trust comes from the truth. I need to know I trust you. We talk about psychological safety. We talk about other sort of phrases that we use in EDI and DEI. Trust and truth are important. Is it fair? And I use what I would call the FREDA principles, and that's FREDA, which stands for fairness, respect, equality, dignity, and autonomy. So fairness has to be rooted in everything we do, almost like a subroutine in our brains. Every time we think about something, am I being fair? Am I being respectful? Am I creating equitable and equal solutions, giving people dignity and also autonomy? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Again, I think when we think about emotional intelligence, when we think about cultural intelligence, the key core tenets of that is building stronger relationships. So again, when we think about what is EDI all about, this is again what Rotary has had for over 100 years, is these core values, is all that EDI really is all about. And will it be beneficial? Does that mean that we all benefit from what we're trying to achieve? Or is it just a few? And I believe the best solutions are ones that we all benefit from. So let me hand over now back to Jason to host this. But thank you for your time. I really appreciate your nodding and thumbs up in the background. But I'll hand back to Jason, and I'd love to just open up to some questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was really good, and I think really kind of sets the table for just a few questions that I have from what you sent me. I also have a couple of questions of my own, but I would also I know by hold the rope. I know by all the nods and the just the engagement of this group that I'm sure they have questions of their own, and I would like to let them ask away, if you will. But one of the first questions is one that you didn't send me, that I just a little bit more about you and stuff, is your wife Marie. I learned and had to Google it. And I don't know if I'm even saying this right, but cisgender, is that correct? Um,
Cisgender? No.
Gender, CISGENDR.
Oh, cisgender. That
Cisgender.
so.
See, I knew I was going to screw that up, so I had to Google it. And can you explain it for the group, what that means, to like what that means? And I mean, like you said, you've been married 38 years, and obviously this was a big change, not only for you but for your entire family. And what does that mean? Like, what does that mean to you? That number one, you've made it through the briar patch, with lots of scrapes, and you continue to get the bliss. Um, but explain that term to us and what
So,
that means.
cisgender. So from Latin, trans as a prefix in Latin means on the other side of. So transportation, transform, transatlantic. So trans means on the other side. Cis is also Latin. It means on the same side. So when we're talking about gender, transgender means on the other side of which you were born. So I was assigned male at birth. I am a transgender woman, which means my gender identity is on the other side or opposite to that assigned at birth. Cis being on the same side just means that you aligned with what you were assigned at birth. If you wanted to go into Greek and use Greek instead of Latin, that's hetero and homo. So cis, trans, hetero, homo is the Latin and Greek, but it just means on the other side of your gender identity is not that assigned at birth. So that's where those two terms come from. And yeah, you were right in saying that it was a challenging time. I suppose is a pretty much understatement. You know, if my wife was here now, she would probably say, "Yeah, challenging time," and the rest. It's a big ask. You know, we got married. I was perceived to be a white guy, and she was a white female. We got married, and we had this. Do you remember is it the Pixar cartoon Up?
Hmm.
And they get all together, and unfortunately, she passes away. That's kind of the vision that we had, you know, growing old together, and you're walking hand in hand down the street. And 8 or 9 years ago, well, probably about 12 years ago when we first talked about it, that vision had to be reorientated into a new reality. And another, I love my analogies and metaphors and visualizations here is you think about the space shuttle. You know, when it's on the launch pad, you have to give it enough velocity for it to escape Earth's gravity and get out into space. But if you give it too much thrust, all the heat tiles blow off, and so you're up there and you can't get back down again because it'll burn up. And then when you're up there, you got to somehow try and find the right trajectory for it to come back down again. Because if you go too steep, it's going to burn up. If you go too shallow, it's going to bounce off into space. So there's a sweet spot, and you've got to try and get onto the runway with the right trajectory so that you can bring it to a halt, and everyone gets out. And you get a round of applause and a big hug afterwards, and say, "Well done, you landed the space shuttle." So it felt a bit like that at the time. You're trying to navigate all these different parameters to try and launch with enough velocity to keep going, but not too much that all your family, your friends, and all your life blows up around you. And then when you're ready and you kind of dealt with it all, that you're able to land that shuttle right on the runway, and everyone is still with you, and you're likable, you're loved, and you got respect. It's a pretty tricky set of dynamics when you've got no rule book, human emotions are involved. So yeah, it was a tricky time, and I think I sent Jason. I think I sent you a link to the TV documentary we took part in, which you're welcome to
Yeah.
share if you haven't already seen it.
Okay. Yeah. Will do. That's it was really good. Um and my other question is when you talk about like embracing diversity and being emotionally intelligent, sometimes that's hard because I feel like we think that, for whatever reason, we're wired a certain way and our beliefs are hardwired a certain way. And so how do you, step back and let new exceptions creep in. When you talk about, in the workplace a lot of these questions were focused around workplace, but you talk about, and if I transfer the word teams that value different cultural norms and individual emotions are more adaptable and resilient. But if you transform the word team to society or teams to are, as a parent, I want my kids to accept and do unto others and, understand that they're not going to see the same things around them, every single day. It would be pretty darn boring. I think I told you that when we talked, That'd be pretty darn boring if we all thought the same and we're like little robots walking around. But so how can we effectively develop emotional and cultural intelligence? And I know you said among teams, but how can we, maybe we weren't of that uh frame of mind coming up, especially, generational. It can be different. So how do you how do we understand and appreciate, and how do we train ourselves, or how do we become, if we maybe didn't do such a good job of being emotionally intelligent, how do we adapt and do a better job? And I don't know if that makes any sense what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, it does. It does. I think the first thing we have to appreciate is everybody thinks they're right.
Hmm.
Everybody's coming from a perspective. So when we're saying that, how do we develop emotional intelligence? How do we do this? Most of us already think we are emotionally intelligent. Most of us already think we are aware and we are inclusive and we are whatever we are, because we live in our echo chamber, we live with our biases, we live with our families, our communities, and we tend to homogenize around people who think, act, and feel the same as we do. So we don't feel any difference. We don't feel the breeze in our face at all. We just feel that everybody is agreeing with us. So it takes you to step out of your comfort zone, out of your network, out of your environment, to see the different way of the world. A fish doesn't know it's in water until you take it out of the water, and that's when the fish realizes it can't breathe. So we have to realize that the people are in their echo chambers, they're in their environment. They're worried about themselves. They're worried about their family. They think about protectionism. All the biases are kicking in. Anybody who's different to me from over the hill is there out to do me bad. That's our human bias is there. So everybody thinks they're doing the right thing, and I think that's, if we start from that premise, then again, what I said earlier is we often focus on the what, not the why. If I can start having conversations with you about why you believe something, why that's important to you, why it makes a difference, then I can start to understand why your lived experience and my lived experience are different. Because we can't assume that we're right and you're wrong. Because just
Right.
because someone thinks differently to you, there's a gap in perspectives. And you might say, well, hang on a minute, it's obvious you're wrong, or obviously, my opinion is better. By starting with that premise, we're not really meeting people in the middle. So we have to somehow find a way of negotiating that conversation. And I'm not saying you should chase down conspiracy theories or get sucked into rabbit holes of these really wacky theories around, was the moon landing fake, and getting into those sort of conversation type things. But being able to explore other people's views is the starting point. So I would say, yeah, to try and get back to your question, what we need to try and do is create environments, create conversations where it's a safe space where we can have these debates, where we can have these conversations. We can talk about politics, or religion, money, relationships, all these things that we always try and shy away from, because they can become quite difficult to have. But we need to try and create environments where we can have these conversations, not necessarily to agree with each other, but understand why we have a different view. You know, you look at what's going on in the world right now. Let's just take the Middle East. There's one perspective from Israel. There's one perspective from Palestine. Are they both right, or are they both wrong, or is there some truth in the middle there somewhere? So I like to think there's some truth in the middle there somewhere, where everybody has a perspective, and it's trying to get to the root cause of that. I don't need to be for you and against you. I need to just say, what's the end goal? And if you think about transformational leadership as a concept, and we can apply that to ourselves. It's about
Hmm.
trying to think about the destination, trying to paint a picture on the wall of what we want to try and achieve. And we want people to stop dying. We want women and children and young men to have a life, have success. We don't want people to die. We don't want people to be kidnapped. We don't want people to be blown up and lose their houses and livelihoods. That's what we're trying to get to. The what, all this kind of mess here, it gets in the way of why we think things. If we can park that and move forward from a baseline, that's what we're trying to get to. So when we're trying to build these inclusive conversations, sometimes we just need to release our prisoners, accept that we have the history, not forget it, not erase it, not we need to acknowledge it, We can't keep taking that forward, wanting to win our argument because of what happened to us yesterday. So I don't know if that answers the question really, but
Yeah,
it's more of a
that is,
mindset and a process.
it actually brings up a second question though that I just thought of when you were giving your answer, and which I thought you did a really good job of interpreting what I was asking. But when you have two or three or four or five people in the room, however many, and you're trying to become more emotionally intelligent, you're trying to ask questions and have those conversations, and things do take a turn to the more volatile, or voices get raised, or people have they get dug in. How can we be more emotionally intelligent and know when to, keep holding onto the rope, but maybe backing up a little bit down, because I don't want to let go of that rope. I don't want to give up and just say screw it, that's the way you are, and storm off. But how do we back off so that we baby steps, if you will?
Yeah, again, you come back to the premise. You're not necessarily right. You have a perspective, and the other person has a perspective. So they believe that their perspective is the best perspective. You believe yours is. So by by bumping heads or coming up with that failure to communicate, what you're trying to do is you're holding on to your prisoners whilst expecting the other person to let go of theirs.
Mhm.
So we have to try and find that way. So I always think in any communication relationship, at some point someone needs to take the high ground and take responsibility for
Yep.
a positive resolution. And that can be you. And you can say, look, okay, can we just back up on that? Can we park that? Look, go back to something I said really right at the beginning was positive people experiences. Start with the end in mind. If you want this conversation to end in a positive way, sometimes you need to back up and say, look, hang on a minute, this is going bad. We're falling out. I don't want to fall out with you. I want to be good friends. I want to be able to talk about this. I want to go and have a beer or a coffee afterwards. How can we just meet in the middle here? We can agree to differ, but we can also agree to understand why we believe something without having to force the other person to be right. And it should be the last ditch thing where you say, actually, we can't carry on here. I need to walk away for my own safety or your own safety, or we need to part company. But
Mhm.
try and do it in a way where you're leaving it in a position to say, look, we can't solve this today. I've got to get on and do something. Let's come back to this in a week when the
Yep.
temperature's died down, or um, not leaving it where you're not leaving that bad blood or that cold argument. You're trying to leave it with
Yeah.
a next step. Let's chat about it later. That's yeah, I hear what you're saying. You've got lots of great points there. I need to go and do some research. I
Yeah.
need to find out more. Can we talk about it later? So yeah, just try and back up and come back again.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And really, Joanne, there were a couple of other questions that she had sent that but I think you've done a really good job. And it's 4:40, so 6:40. I want to open it up because I know this group and I know that they have questions. So if anybody has any questions, I want to make sure that I give you guys ample time to ask your own questions, because I'm sure you have them.
I have a question, Joanne. I work in HR and training, so this is very germane to my job. Uh, Rotary brings people together from different generations, different cultures, different professions. When Rotary first started, we used to only have one profession, one lawyer, one banker. Now we've broadened our membership, but we bring in people from different cultures and different professions and so forth. What are some practical ways a service club, living in 2025 as a global organization, how can we make every member feel true, like that they're holding the rope with us?
Yeah, it's a great point. And I'll probably use the word belonging.
Okay.
So rather than just inclusion, belonging. And belonging is a feeling. Do I feel I belong here? And one of the core roots of belonging is to feel you've got a purpose and you're aligned with the values of the organization you want to belong to. And I often think about it as the example I often use is my favorite coffee shop. I know it's my favorite coffee shop. It's got the bean I like. It's the pressure in the espresso machine works well. There's a nice seat in the window. I can watch people go by. The sofa's comfy, and it just feels right. Because if I go to the coffee shop around the corner, it's just not the same. It just doesn't fit. So I know that my favorite place, I belong there. So what we can do with Rotary, with service organizations, is we want to create environments where people feel that they're part of something bigger. They're able to contribute, they're able to experience, and it just feels really comfortable and really natural for them to be there. And when we're looking at doing, if you look at employee engagement surveys and you're an HR person yourself, we can measure belongingness by, there's a great book, and I've got it on the shelf here. It's Nine Lies About Work.
Yes.
Marcus Good or National. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you
I've
look at
seen
those
it.
eight tests of belonging, one of those is I can use my skills every day at work. So if you're joining Rotary as a service organization, I want to be able to bring my skills and my repertoire into the club. And then one of the other ones of those things is I'll be recognized for good work. So I can bring stuff to the organization and people will recognize me for being a fantastic person by doing that. So this is just two tests of belonging. And again, you can apply that book, that Nine Lies About Work, and just reframe it to a service club and use those eight tests. Those eight tests
Good idea.
are really
It's a good
key.
idea.
And I think that's the key thing. So value the skill they bring, recognize and reward and acknowledge what they do. But the other one of those eight tests is basically a chance to grow and learn. So Rotary also gives you a chance to grow and learn into something you haven't already done before. So again, you're applying those eight senses of belonging to create a fantastic service club and a reason to be.
Okay. Thank you. My second part, and then I want to turn. I know Karen has a question, and but I want to ask the second part. When we plan service projects, because like we are a service organization, what are some blind spots that we might miss when it comes to inclusion and equity? As we go out into the community and we're trying to engage the community, are there some blind spots that we just, I mean, once again, that we might just need to be aware of that we're not aware of because there are blind spots.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. It's the right-handed spoon thing. We have to assume our starting premise is we've forgotten something. If you start with that objective, and then you whether you use the 5 whys technique and use the 5 what have we forgotten. We all go around the room. What haven't we thought about? What haven't we thought about? Maybe you have a tick sheet of have we got hearing, sight, disability, accessibility? Have we got lactose? Have we got allergies? Have we got this? Have we got the other? Have we got seating? Are we for people with neurodiversity? Too much lighting, not enough quiet space? Are we signposting? Maybe the answer is bring somebody in who's got fresh eyes, ears, and senses, who isn't being part of the project, and say, look, okay, this is our plan. What have we missed? And maybe go out to community groups, people who are in disability communities, deaf, blind, other communities, and say, here's what we're planning on doing. Where did we go wrong? And then over time, as a club, as an association, you'll start to build that expertise and repertoire so that conscious inclusion, you become more unconsciously inclusive. It becomes a habit, and you can train yourself to start thinking in these terms. So I walk into rooms now and I think, I've got a friend who has cerebral palsy. She has a powered wheelchair. I go into there thinking, there's no way my friend could get her wheelchair in the lift or navigate this building. So she would feel excluded. Or I go into a gym and they've got the lift takes you from floor A to floor B. It's locked and there's a sign that's saying you have to ask for a key. How embarrassing is it for somebody who has a disability to ask for a key, to use the lift, to use the toilet? So you start thinking, because I've got friends who have these characteristics, I think I almost have their avatar in my head and think, how would they behave or how would they feel about this? So I think maybe use a persona model, an avatar model of different characteristics of people, socioeconomic, whatever you can think of. And you can use AI. And I develop persona models for organizations where we sort of scope out some types of people, even if they're real world example, and say, look, build me a story about this person and the challenge they may have in this scenario. And it comes up with a whole lot of things. And you can use that as a very quick way of developing a persona check sheet, if you like.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you again for your wonderful presentation tonight. Thank you. Karen, I'll turn it over to you. I'm sorry I dominated you.
No, thank you, Kent. You asked some great questions. Joanne, I just want to thank you so much for joining us. Your message is something I personally needed to hear right now. I apologize that I've been moving about. As a grandmother, I'm here taking care of children while my daughter's out of town, so I apologize for that.
No, don't apologize.
Yes. You addressed earlier, and I'm going to ask you to expand on this. You said we're in positions as Rotarians to speak up for inclusion, speak up. Sometimes, especially right now, what's happening in our country, that's not always easy without getting accosted, verbally lambasted for saying, wait a minute, wait, that wasn't fair. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, it's not easy, and I appreciate. Yeah, I see what I see in the news. I don't know what it's like in detail, but I see some of the rhetoric that's coming out of the federal government and the administration, and it sounds quite scary. And the erasure of people or of history, if you like. So maybe now is not the time to necessarily march and stand up and that's the thing. But what you could do is, I mean, I'll just take an example. There are web pages being deleted with erasing certain facts from history. There are books being taken out of libraries. There are other things that are going on to erase people's identities. Maybe you could start your own library. Make sure you have copies of documents. Make sure you have copies of web pages. Make sure you document history, so that when the tide turns, as it will one day, then you are there and say, here's what we lost. We kept it for you. We've been archivists for the truth. We're holding it. And then, if you look at what's going on in any country that's going through turmoil, there are groups of people that form movements to stand up and be counted, and then you can do whatever part in that you want to play, not necessarily being a flag marcher and a protester, but you can do things in the background to support people, be an ally. People who are struggling, reach out to them and say, how can I help? So there are ways you can do things without necessarily standing up and being seen about it. You just quietly in the background, holding that rope, making sure that you're not saying it's okay, but you're trying to do things within the law, within the environment you live in, to make sure that you're not just giving in. And if you haven't watched it already, watch Handmaid's Tale and learn what 8 seasons of resistance does and how you can do that. You can't necessarily fight the patriarchy with pitchforks, but what you can do is keep in there and believe that one day you will be able to make a difference. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead, Ron. Ronnie, you got your hand up.
So much. I appreciate that answer. It gives me hope.
Yes, thank you very much, Joanne, for the words. I have a question. So I've been lately in a lot of volunteer organizations with young people that are trying to promote a lot of good things for the society. But so how young people sometimes are very passionate about things, and I've encountered sometimes experiences where the young people that want to expand the diversity are too passionate about something. So I was and then you got the other side of people that are maybe sometimes some young people that are also young, but they're kind of traditional people. Maybe they were in a very traditional family. So it's kind of like you're working with different type of volunteers, and sometimes you don't want a specific project or a specific activity to be affected by these differences. So if you feel, if you identify, or you can recommend something to say to someone that is maybe very passionate or either one side or the other, what words or what would you suggest to kind of calm down someone and kind of like, bring them back, and if they want their diversity to be respected, to be respected, but to kind of like, kind of like understand a little bit the deep meaning of it, and kind of like, if they're young and passionate, how to like, what would you suggest? I mean, I'm a little stuck sometimes on these things.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and there are people in I was going to say my community. What's my community? It's a collection of people with a common characteristic. There are people who choose to engage with banners and protests and marches. I see myself as an educator, not an activist, although it's hard not to be an activist sometimes when you're feeling under threat. So I'm 60 years old. My days for marching and storming the castle are way past. But I think we have to recognize that people who are younger, in their teens, early 20s, they've got a lot of passion, a lot of energy. They're not maybe, they haven't been tainted with pragmatism and an age and experience. They're making the mistakes, or they're making their process for the first time. Maybe I've been worn down and I've realized that banging my head against the wall hurts, and it's not going to change the world. So I think, again, I said it earlier, is understand people's why. Why do the people you're talking to, the young people, feel the way they do? How can they have that energy directed into a cause that they can believe in? Because they believe they're right. Yeah, you believe you're right. You have a different perspective. So it's trying to find the why and try and nudge rather than coerce, if you like. Just a gentle kind of sell a better way. Yeah, if we could all get behind this. I know it's frustrating. I know that we want change now. It's the old chant, isn't it? When do we want it? We want it now. But the reality is that the arc of change is long. History has shown us that even a quick incursion takes years to recover. Ukraine, we thought we'd have it sorted in a year. How many years has it been? World War II was, it took years. Korean War. You look at all these wars, they're easy to get into and almost impossible to get out of. So we have to recognize that the young people maybe don't have that life of experience to realize that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And all they want to do is run at the wall and knock it down. So find tasks that are high energy tasks that they can get stuck into. As I show a different way, or maybe learn from them. Maybe you need to learn their enthusiasm and feistiness again, and let it rejuvenate you. Somewhere in the middle there, somewhere in the middle there. But yeah, you also need to be, if it's not right, you have to call it out as well. You have to say to people that that is not going to solve the problem. It's actually making the problem worse, because not as a lecture, but just engage with them, because it's sometimes you hear the term "not in my name." You've got to be careful sometimes that people are using your cause in a way that doesn't enhance the credibility of it. So yeah, you have to be able to work with your own community and help police it as well.
Or maybe talk to them a little, like you were saying, just talk to them and kind of like find out what exactly is bothering one or the other side, and the traditional or the more diverse side, kind of like pull
Yeah.
out a little bit the ideas, the emotion, and kind of like bring it out, and that's it, kind of relaxing, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, find a way to just channel that passion in a different way, because they've got passion. They want to solve it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I know there's other questions out there, but I have one more question, Joanne. I really appreciate this. Of course, I'm always, when I did my trainings at work, and we had a big long training today, and we always try to leave with some sort of practical. Always try to look for something tactical, I guess, that they could use. So if Rotary is if we're going to be as an organization, and we'd like to say, you mentioned in your presentation that our membership, grew, and we kind of plateaued, and we've just kind of been maintaining and really kind of trending downward, post-COVID, post-global pandemic. service clubs and the changing of the world. But if we're going to remain, if Rotary Club is to remain vibrant for the next generation, what shifts in mindsets around inclusion do we need to think about today? I mean, like right now, for when we hit our next service project and we start talking about our next activity, what do we, this group here, need to be thinking about, you know, to shift our mindset to have inclusion, to embrace that today?
One of the reasons I stopped being a Rotarian was I just couldn't get it to resonate with me. I just couldn't find a message that worked. And I'm not saying it's Rotary as an entire global organization. It's just my experience of Rotary, my club, the people I was working with. I couldn't get involved. I just couldn't relate. It didn't resonate enough. And yes, I could have chosen a different club. Yes, part of it was me. I take responsibility as well. I could have stuck both feet in rather than leant back. So I think recognizing that people are looking for different things these days. I think that's the reality. And using a football or a sporting analogy, if you're not winning games, change the manager. So if you are not winning your membership retention, your engagement, then clearly you're not thinking like the people you're trying to attract. And in a way, you almost have to say, we don't want to recruit more people like me. We want to recruit people who aren't like me, which means that inevitably the culture of the club will change to something that you have to then try and keep pace with. It's not what you want anymore. So you've got to try and find that middle ground, that grey area where it's sliding into the evolution. And I remember the scouting movement in the UK about 10 years ago. They were going through this real decline. And what they came up with was a 5-year strategy at the time. And I met the chief executive many, many years ago about this. And what they did was they had to come up with this new 5-year strategy to engage with younger people in different ways, rebrand it, change the uniform, all these traditional values that went straight out the window. And what they recognized was that not everybody was going to follow them. And some people were going to just drift away. And their strategy was, if it's not for you, we're not going to do anything about that. We're just going to let you wither on the vine. We're just going to say, you can carry on being in the scouting movement, you carry on doing what you're doing, but we're not going to water your plants anymore. And you're just going to get older, or you're just going to drift away, because we need to put all our energy into the new shoots. And that's where we need to focus. So we need people who are Rotarians today who want to water those shoots. And if you don't, that's fine. Go and form a breakaway club that is going to be what you've done forever, and it's never going to change. That's fine. Carry on doing that. But we've got to find something different. And in order to get that difference to work, you need the people in there driving that change who are part of that grassroots. And you almost have to step back and do the grandfather, grandmother thing and say, you can go forward yourselves and do this, and we're just here to catch you and put the safety net around you. But it's your club now. We want to support you and do it that way. So I would say, when we talk about inclusion, when we talk about design systems, involve the people you're trying to attract or support or provide for in the decision making.
Joanne, have you ever been asked on a, like, I know that you've spoken to, well, I know this is at least the second Rotary Club you've spoken to. I don't know if you've spoken to more, but on a national, international level, have you ever been asked to share your story?
I have in the UK. I've spoken at some local clubs in physical terms pre-COVID. So when I first joined Rotary, they wheeled me out around the local district and things. And I actually went to Rotary headquarters in the UK and did some DG training. I trained a cohort of DGs 1 year, but they never invited me back. So I don't know if it was budget, because I did charge. I didn't charge a fortune, but I did charge.
Right.
Maybe they decided that the budget wasn't there. Maybe they didn't like a transgender woman telling them what to do. Who knows? You know, it was a room full of old men.
You don't know how much I appreciate you not charging us and gracing us with your presence. Um, the
So
reason
if
I
you know
asked
someone that wants me to get on the global stage, I'd
No, the
fly over
reason I
someone.
asked is because when you look at and I invite you guys all to go to the See Change Happen website. I shared the link, and I shared Joanne's email too. If you guys think of anything after this is all done, I'm sure Joanne would be like just honored to have you guys shoot her an email and ask her a question. And I know she will respond back because she is super Johnny on the spot and very very quick. But we just share really quick. I'm because I'm not going to remember all of them, but you've spoken. You guys, Joanne has spoken to the likes of Deloitte, General Electric, Siemens Health and Nears, Lego, and I don't know, but you've
Jaguar
spoken.
Land Rover, yeah,
Jaguar
HR.com.
Land Rover. I don't know, just some other big, very recognizable names. And I just it's amazing. I know it's like we're starting to go past time and I would have you just stay here forever, but you need to go to sleep. But I would be on I think that's what you say, like your friends call you Joe. Um but I would, I know I've been calling you Joanne. I've been very formal and very, but Joe, you don't know how much I appreciate, um, something she said when I talked to her, you guys, was that she was surprised somebody from Texas would reach out. And,
I did.
and, you know, this is essentially our club. Like our club, you got our whole club tonight. And I will admit, you guys, I was nervous at first reaching out, and I did this all on my own. I didn't ask anybody for permission. I'm the president of the club this year. And I was a little nervous um about asking Joanne to come and talk to us today. And it was my wife, who's not a Rotarian, who had to remind me that we're Rotarians. And I just, it's been very eye opening. I know that as a parent, my wife and I are doing what we need to do. I know that we're a very diverse Rotary Club. Um, but I just want to thank you guys all for your level of engagement, your respect, your questions, everything. Um, I just thank you guys.
Jason,
Can I
I
can I
think
just
I might speak for several of us in saying that maybe there were some of us too worried how this could go. We are in Texas. We are in a climate right now that is not accepting of everyone. I mean, I'm just going to tell it like it is. And I, I thank you so much for bringing Joe to us with this message, this very Rotarian message. And, I'm hoping I'm speaking for some nodding heads that you, you did great. You did great, Mr. President. Thank you.
Yeah. I want to read a comment. I don't know. I mean, I know we can all see it in the comments, and I don't want to embarrass him, but Tom Grayson put in the comments on this Yom Kippur holiday. He applauded everyone's courage, particularly Joanne's courage, for sharing her story and reminding us the importance of inclusion. Thank you, Tom, for sharing.
Yep. Thank you. Um,
Jason, can I just reply
yeah,
to what
go
you
ahead.
said? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to admit, when I got the email saying, would I like to come as, and it had Texas in there, I thought, hang on a minute, you're yeah, probably one of the worst places in the country. Um, yeah, next to Florida or some of the other states. And I thought, I think something you said to me, Jason, was, but we're Rotarians. And I went, of course you are. Of course you are. And I I then at that moment went, my bias, I was wrong. I then stepped back and went, hang on a minute. Of course you are. I prejudged you, not you individually, but
Right.
because you are from Texas, and that everybody in Texas would be anti me. But again, that's the problem with the headlines. The headlines, you hear one story, not you have to read to the bottom of the page, as I always say, read to the bottom of the page, read all the facts, all the information. Not everybody voted. Yeah, as I say, not everyone votes for that one party or that one candidate. Other people vote for other things as well. So, yeah, you may well have voted for the incumbent or not. It doesn't matter, but it doesn't mean to say that you're bad people. You're good people. You're fantastic people because you're Rotarians.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I I want to invite you. I know that the time zone sucks, but you are welcome to join us.
Please come back. Please come back.
Yeah, you can absolutely drop by.
Joanne, I know it's early in the morning there, and I don't know what your drinking habits are. We're a drinking club, so we like to have a cocktail in the evening. So you can have a mimosa in your morning or a Bloody Mary and join us anytime. So you're welcome.
I'm teetotal. I'm teetotal.
Okay, well, we have some teetotalers in the group too. So
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an energy. We can't see it. That's an energy drink. That is. So yeah.
I was wondering what that
was. Correction. That was Linda, not me.
Okay. Oh, Linda.
I'm the Jew. She's the Jew. I'm the Jew. I'm the Christian. I'm the Jew.
Thank you, Miss Linda.
Thank you, Miss Linda. Thank you for keeping Tom in line. God dog it.
And
if you ever want to invite me back, I could talk about stopping drinking and losing weight. I've lost over nearly 9 stone over the last 18 months. So if I can do a talk on losing weight and getting healthy.
Wait,
as a 60-year-old
how much
trans
is that in weight?
How much?
It's a lot, Karen. It's a lot.
9 stone. So 10 stone is 140 pounds. So 9 stone must be
Oh my goodness.
126 pounds.
Whoa.
Wow. Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to hear,
I've lost a human being. I've lost a small human. Yeah.
Somebody sign her up.
Yeah.
My wife's lost it as well. We both lost about 9 stone, 120, 130 pounds. Yeah.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
I was feeling good about my 37 pounds I've lost in the last year. Now I feel very weak.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, we may just take
I've
you
gone
up on
from
that.
this big to this big. Yeah.
Email me. Let me know when you got time. We got a whole other year of speakers that we need. So I would absolutely have you back, and you could talk about the Yellow Pages if you want. I think we'd all be engaged and listen. So,
Well, do me a favor. Leave me a recommendation or send me a testimonial. Everybody, if you want. I'll send you a copy of the slides because there's a QR code on there which will take you to a web page where you can leave a testimonial. I'll send you the slides. Do scan the QR, and if you know of any other clubs or
absolutely
districts, then let me know. I'm always up for it. Whilst I'm not a Rotarian anymore, but I used to be in a service club called the Round Table, which was born out of Rotary in the UK in 1927. So I was a round tabler for 20 odd years. I was the national president of the UK Round Table, and when we had 10,000 members, and I used to speak all over Europe at other round tables. And I went to I think it was New York. I went to because New York's got a round table as well. So I've been on the world stage with Round Table, not Rotary, but yeah. I've got service clubs in me, in my bones.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and I told you this is going to be on YouTube, and I am pretty sure, knowing this group, that they're going to be talking about this. Speaker that we had. We have a pretty good track record of getting some pretty amazing speakers, and Joe, you are definitely on that list. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to go to bed now, and it's been absolutely amazing to meet you all.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
For being
God bless.
Fantastic
Take
audience.
Care. Yes, thank you so much. If as Joe drops off, just everybody say thank you. If anybody wants to
Sweet
stay
dreams.
afterwards, we can. If I could ask any of the board members that are still on, I just have a quick question while we're
Okay.
all together and engaged. Thank you. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.